Hamlet. You've definitely heard the name. It's one of the most famous plays in the entire world, and it was written over 400 years ago. But what exactly makes it a masterpiece? Well, in this explainer, we're going to deconstruct what makes this tragedy so incredibly timeless. We're not just looking at the plot. We are popping the hood and looking at the engine that makes this thing run.
So that's the big question, isn't it? How does a story about a ghost, a prince, and a poisoned sword have this kind of staying power? I mean, it's got to be more than just a simple revenge plot. The real magic, the secret sauce, is in how Shakespeare tells the story, the very words he chooses. So here's our game plan. First, we'll do a quick flyby of the plot. Then we're diving into the powerful literary tools Shakespeare has in his back pocket. After that, we'll get a front row seat inside Hamlet's mind. And finally, we'll connect all the dots to see why this play still hits so hard today. All right, let's set the stage. At its heart, the play is a classic revenge story, but, with some very complicated family drama mixed in. Okay, so it all kicks off when Hamlet's father, the king, dies out of nowhere. And almost immediately, like uncomfortably fast, his uncle Claudius marries his mom and snags the crown. As if that wasn't messed up enough, his father's ghost shows up, drops an absolute bombshell that he was murdered by Claudius, and gives Hamlet one single terrifying order: avenge me. Yeah, no pressure. But here's the thing, that plot, that's just the skeleton, the real meat on the bones. The reason we are still talking about this play centuries later is all in the language itself. The how of the story is where Shakespeare's genius just completely takes over. So let's crack open that toolkit. We're going to look at a few of the specific literary devices Shakespeare uses to absolutely load his words with emotion, with imagery, and with some serious power. First up, we've got allusion. This is basically a literary shortcut. It's when a writer references something the audience already gets, like, say, Greek mythology or a historical event, and by doing that, they can pack a ton of meaning into just a couple of words. And check out how Hamlet uses it right here. He says his uncle is no more like my father than I to Hercules. Boom! In one single comparison, he makes his dad sound like a god and his uncle Claudius like a cheap, pathetic knockoff. It is incredibly efficient, powerful stuff. Next tool in the box, anaphora. This one is all about the power of repetition. Think of it like a drumbeat. By starting a few phrases in a row with the exact same word, you create this rhythm that just hammers an idea straight into the listener's brain. Here's a perfect example. Claudius is telling Hamlet to, get over his dad's death already. And listen to how he repeats the word fault. He doesn't just say Hamlet's grief is bad. No, he escalates it. It's a fault to heaven, a fault against the dead, a fault to nature. That repetition makes the accusation feel absolutely massive, just overwhelming. And that's exactly the effect. It's like a typewriter hitting the same key. Bam, bam, bam. That repeated word, fault, just drills the point home. Suddenly, Claudius's little piece of criticism doesn't feel like advice anymore. It feels like a judgment, like a public condemnation. Okay, now for one of the heavy hitters, metaphor. This is so important. A metaphor doesn't say something is like something else. It says it is something else. It forges this powerful, direct connection right in your mind. So let's break down a really crucial metaphor in the play. Hamlet basically calls Claudius a rat. Now, think about it for a second. What does a rat make you think of? Something deceptive, right? Treacherous, an unwanted pest that hides in the dark and needs to be dealt with. Hamlet gets all of that across with just one word. And here's the moment it happens. Hamlet hears a noise behind a curtain, and he thinks it's Claudius spying on him. He yells this line and just stabs right through the fabric. He doesn't say, "Is that a man who is like a rat?" He just says, "a rat." In that instant, Claudius is reduced to nothing more than vermin. The terrible, tragic irony, of course, is that it's not Claudius, it's Polonius. So all these literary tools are great for what characters say to each other, but what about what's going on inside their heads? For that, Shakespeare needed a way to give us, the audience, a direct line into his character's thoughts, and he did it with one of theater's most famous tricks, the soliloquy. A soliloquy is basically a character thinking out loud. It's a private conversation just between them and us. Everyone else on stage kind of pretends not to hear, which gives us this completely unfiltered look into their deepest fears, their secret plans, their true feelings. It's the ultimate window into the human mind. And when you talk about soliloquies,
There's none more famous than Hamlet's "to be or not to be." This isn't just some guy feeling sorry for himself. This is a deep philosophical debate about the very nature of life and death, and Shakespeare uses these incredible metaphors to explore it. First, he describes the pain of living as a constant physical attack, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. That metaphor paints this picture of life not just being tough, but being an active, painful, relentless battle against a cruel and random fate. You really feel under siege. Then he thinks about the alternative, fighting back. But listen to the imagery he uses. To take arms against a sea of troubles? I mean, can you win a sword fight against the ocean? No way. This metaphor just brilliantly captures that feeling of being completely and totally overwhelmed. It suggests that fighting back is noble, yeah, but maybe totally hopeless. Okay, so we've got the plot, and we've got the powerful literary tools Shakespeare's working with. So now, let's tie it all together and answer the big question. Why does this 400-year-old play still feel so real, so important?
Well, it's because the play digs into stuff that's just fundamentally human. Revenge, sanity versus madness, family loyalty, death, purpose. I mean, these aren't just 17th century problems. These are the big questions we all still wrestle with in our own lives. And that's the core of why it lasts.
And this right here is the key takeaway. All those things we talked about, the allusions, the anaphora, the metaphors, the soliloquies, they are not just fancy decorations. They are the engines. They take these huge, timeless themes and make them feel real, emotional, and completely unforgettable, whether you're watching in 1601 or right now.
Which brings us to one last thought. If we take that powerful metaphor from his famous speech, what kind of overwhelming, unwinnable battles would a Hamlet living today have to face? What is our sea of troubles? It's a question that shows you just how deeply this masterpiece can still make us think.